Hare Krishna Mataji, are you ready to take from here?
Hare Krishna.
And
Hare Krishna.
we can hear you, Mataji.
Thank you so much. Please accept humble obeisances. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chava Narottam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiret Shrinvatam Svagritha Krishna Punya Shravana Krishna Президента Скорхе Бадрини Ведуноти Сурсита Наста Приешев Падришуни Тем Бхагават Севая Бхагавати Утамашлаке Бхактир Бхавтинештики. We will be reading today Canto 3, Chapter 31, Text 6-8. Primim hikshata sarvangam saukumaryat pratikshanam murcham apnoti uruklesha tatre tyakshudhitarmohu. Krimhi by worms, kshata bitten, sarva anga all over the body, saukumaryad because of tenderness, pratikshanam moment after moment, marcham unconsciousness, apnoti he obtains, uruklesha whose suffering is great, tatratya being there in the abdomen, kshudita hungry, muhu again and again. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. Beaten again and again all over the body by the hungry worms in the abdomen itself, the child suffers terrible agony because of his tenderness. He thus becomes unconscious moment after moment because of the terrible condition. Purport. The miserable condition of the material existence is not only felt when we come out of the womb of the mother, but it is also present within the womb. Miserable life begins from the moment the living entity begins to contact his material body. Unfortunately, we forget this experience and do not take the miseries of birth very seriously. In Bhagavad Gita, therefore, it is specifically mentioned that one should be very alert to understand the specific difficulties of birth and death. Just as during the formation of this body, we have to pass through so many difficulties within the womb of the mother, at the time of death, there are also many difficulties. As described in the previous chapter, one has to transmigrate from one body to another, and the transmigration into the bodies of dogs and hogs is especially miserable. But despite such miserable conditions, due to the spell of Maya, we forget everything and become enamored by the present so-called happiness, which is described as actually no more than a counteraction to distress. Text 7. Katu tikshnoshna lavana ruksham la dibhir olbana madr bhuktar apapsprishta sarvan gotita vedana. Katu bitter, tikshna pungent, ushna hot, lavana salty, ruksha dry, amla sour, adibhi and so on, ulbana excessive, madr bhukta by foods eaten by the mother, upasprishta affected, sarva anga all over the body, utita rising, vedana pain. Translation. Owing to the mother's eating bitter, pungent foodstuffs or food which is too salty or too sour, the body of the child incessantly suffers pains which are almost intolerable. Purport. All descriptions of the child's bodily situation in the womb of the mother are beyond our conception. It is very difficult to remain in such a position, but still the child has to remain. Because his consciousness is not very developed, the child can't tolerate it. Otherwise, he would die. That is the benediction of Maya, who endows the suffering body with the qualifications for tolerating such terrible tortures. Text 8. Ulbena samvritash tasmin Antrascha bahir avrita, aste kritva shiram kuksham, hugna prishtha shirodara. Ulbena by the amnion samvrita enclosed, tasmin in that place, antra by the intestines, cha and bahim outside, avrita covered, aste he lies, kritva having put, shira the head, kuksha towards the belly, hugna bent, prishtha back, shira thara neck. Translation: placed within the amnion and covered outside by the intestines, the child remains lying on one side of the abdomen, his head turned towards his belly, and his back and neck arched like a bow. Purport: if a grown man were put into such a condition as the child within the abdomen, completely entangled in all respects, it would be impossible for him to live even for a few seconds. Unfortunately, we forget all these sufferings and try to be happy in this life, not caring for the liberation of the soul from the entanglement of birth and death. It is an unfortunate civilization in which these matters are not plainly discussed to make people understand the precarious condition of material existence. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuruntam Yanam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Guravaram Pracharani Rishashunavade Pashtade Shtarani Pancha Kalpatarubhya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitnam Pavanabhyo Vaishnavabhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Guru Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I humbly bow down and seek blessings from all the assembled Vaishnavas and thank you for the opportunity to read Srimad Bhagavatam for my own purification. I've selected a few points to summarize from lectures from Parampara. We are reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 31, which is called The Movement of the Living Entities. Yesterday we have read that fetus grows and remains in abominable residence, which is a breeding place of all kinds of worms. Today in text 6 we have read that worms bite and the fetus again and again, and the child suffers terrible pain because of his tenderness, and he becomes unconscious because of the terrible condition. In purport, Srila Prabhupada told us that miserable life in this world begins from mother's womb, from the moment the living entity begins to contact his material body. Unfortunately, we forget this experience and do not take the miseries of birth very seriously. Also, we forget death experience and the transmigration of the soul from one body to another, and experiences in more miserable forms of life as animals. Maya is so strong that we forget all of it. If we would remember some of these experiences, we would be more serious about trying harder to get more serious in the devotional service and rush to leave this material world as soon as possible. In text 7, Srila Prabhupada is bringing awareness to mothers when they are pregnant to be very careful with food. Plain food is suggested for the child to feel better and to experience less pain that comes from bitter, pungent, too salty or too sour food. We have read that mother supplies food for the child, but that food comes from material nature and the material nature comes from Krishna. Krishna is the controller and the source of the material nature. He is the source of everything. In the text 8, we have read about the uncomfortable position of the child, and in purport, Srila Prabhupada tells that an adult couldn't live a few seconds in this position. And since we forget about all these sufferings, we try to be happy in this life, not caring about the liberation of the soul from the entanglement of birth and death. We are so fortunate to learn about all these circumstances. Krishna and Srila Prabhupada are so merciful to share with us the knowledge about material world and how we can get out of it. Spiritual practice and spiritual teacher are playing the main role in the liberation of our soul from material prison. One of the primary duties of the spiritual master is to explain that we are in this world not to enjoy it. Srila Prabhupada is presenting clear understanding of worldly picture of someone who comes into the world. For the parents, usually it's a lot of happiness, but what about the living entity who gets into this situation? Srimad Bhagavatam explains what are the lessons that living entity is going through, what are unfortunate circumstances that living entity is in. Understanding these unfortunate situations bring us to realize that everything depends on Krishna. We are not in control, we are not enjoyers. And we need to think seriously about spiritual practice, pure chanting, pure devotional service that leads to understanding about our spiritual relationship with Krishna, who is the absolute truth from whom everything emanates. He is great. We are very tiny. We are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. And we serve him trying to do what is pleasing to him. It's very important to read Srimad Bhagavatam, associate with devotees, and follow the instructions of the spiritual teacher to learn to always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. I will stop